Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome. If you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it and I hope you're doing well. It's season 12, yeah! Season 12 is such a good season and I'm so excited to get into it. So, without further ado, it's time to delve into my top 5 episodes of season 12! Number 5, 90 North, 0 West. I talked about this one in my Christmas episode rankings, but I love 90 North, 0 West. I think it's a great Steve episode. I think it's a great pseudo-conclusion to the Santa arc. There is so much love about this episode, and I gotta be honest, a lot of it comes down to the moment I heard Jim Rash, I was sold on whatever they were gonna do from that point on. For those of you that don't know, I adore Mike Tyson Mysteries, and it's one of my favorite shows of all time. So to hear him in this show, to hear Marcus, warmed my heart. And on top of that, you get just such a stellar, weird Christmas episode. It just takes it straight to the nines. And it's a wonderful vehicle for Steve, just being tired of having to run from Santa every year and just wanting to have a traditional Christmas with his family. And that's, you know, it's not something that you would really think about exploring with another series that would do Christmas specials over and over and over again. It's not something that a lot of series would willingly revisit. Again, American Dad isn't meant to be marathon, but it has to appeal to a streaming audience as well as a broadcast audience. And I think 90 North, 0 West is both a perfect continuation of a past story and a wonderful just standalone adventure where, sure, you're curious why they're running from Santa, but it doesn't take long for you to completely understand why they're avoiding Santa in the episode itself. We get the return of Jack, and I don't know, every time I look back at this episode, I feel that the scale is something to really appreciate in an animated comedy. When you think of like Family Guy, their Christmas specials just got darker and darker and darker, but with American Dad, they're still having fun with it. Even going into season 18, every Christmas episode not only serves a narrative purpose, but also is just fun. It's just okay to be fun. And I don't know, I feel like 12 seasons in, Christmas specials could get a little stale, but they've managed to keep it fresh after all these years, and that just goes to show why American Dad is number 1. Number 4, Julia Rogers. Not only is this just a good Stan and Roger episode where you have that pseudo, you know, they're hanging out, and then he decides that the plant is more important than his friend, and there's that, and that's all fine. It's a wonderful Roger episode. It's a wonderful, just American Dad episode. But I wanted to talk about this because the B story is what absolutely gets me every single time. And it's literally just Steve trying to figure out a thing that Jeff and Barry can do. Like, they've never interacted and he thinks they'd get along great. And I love that. I really love the fact that you have this giant tornado that's destroying everything, and Stan protects a plant and lets Roger get flown away, and then he has to go and he does a bunch of Julia Roberts impressions, and then there's a cult that's gonna sacrifice him for a healthy harvest, and there's so many really, really heavy things going on over here. But have you considered that Jeff and Barry could do a thing together? Have you considered that they might just be really good friends if they actually collaborated? And it's just like, how do you balance the two extremes here? You have something that's just completely out there, completely left field, and they just have Steve going, how can I make these two hang out? And it's great. It's so simple. It's so dumb. But that's what makes American Dad so good. They understand the characters, they understand their motivations, and yeah, Barry and Jeff would probably get along, they'd probably do a thing together, and I love that that's probably something the writing team was just talking about, and they managed to talk it into a B story. That's charming. That's fun. More of that. I don't know, it's just at the end when he tears his shirt off and he's dancing victoriously, it's like, yes. I'm so glad this is an episode of American Dad, because I can't imagine another show doing this, and I've said this before, but it still stands true. There is a special magic to how American Dad is made. There is a special written formula that understands the pacing of the jokes. They never betray their laws. I would love to see the American Dad guidebook, their rule book, to see what they can and can't do, what their limits are, what they think every character should be like, the character references. I feel like that's an underappreciated element, but Julia Roberts is a perfect example of them being so aware of who these characters are on an actualized level that they know how to write them brilliantly. Number 3, Bazooka Steve. When I first watched this episode, I feel like I was much more on Steve's side than I was on everyone else's, because I didn't get it. I was fresh out of college, I hadn't really worked a real job yet, and then when I started working a job and wanted an escape, and I revisited Bazooka Steve, I was like, oh wait, hang on, it may be extreme, but the messages actually ring pretty true. This makes a lot more sense now that I've lived it. And I don't know, it made me appreciate Bazooka Steve on a deeper level. It shows that, like I was talking about in the last episode, there is a care by the writing team. They've lived these stories in some shape, way, or form. And, you know, while it might be extremes, it's based off of a very real need to escape, a need to find something to throw your passion into as you go through your day-to-day. And there's just a magic to it. And on the flip side of that, hot take, controversial take, I think this is one of the best Haley and Roger B stories of all time. Not only is it a weird homage to Taxi Cab Confessions, which I'm pretty sure came out like 20 years before this episode even premiered, but it's just full of so many great jokes, great chemistry between Roger and Haley, and it just really, really sings as this dumb accent to Steve trying to figure out society. It's like, here's society, and it's like, Haley, what are you doing? You already paid me back weeks ago, and then shuts him off. I love that. I love what they do here, and I am absolutely bewildered that 12 seasons in, we can get an episode like Bazooka Steve. Because it's aware of not only who its audience is, but what its audience goes through every single day, and it's smart enough to appeal to them without forcing itself to be topical. King of the Hill? Oh, they'll go to a Cowboys game. Well, depending on the season, that may or may not be as relatable as you keep revisiting it, huh? But with the Bazooka Sharks, they're already so fanciful that people aren't, hung up on that or even get distracted by that. They're just like, this is the Bazooka Sharks. Steve doesn't agree with all the people that are following them blindly. And then he realizes that, oh, that's why they follow the Bazooka Sharks like that. I understand now. And it's just, I love it. I love that sort of realization where Steve kind of admits that he's wrong while also finding his own way to be right. It really adds to Steve as a character, and I appreciate the episode for that. Number 2, the Hair Race. Like I said in my review, I regularly watched The Amazing Race when it first premiered all those years ago. Reality TV was in a huge boom in the early 2000s. And so watching this episode, it had a very oddly nostalgic feel to it. And I think, again, that goes to the huge celebrity cast at play for this episode. Not only do you have like Bear Grylls, Sarah Chalke, and Phil Keegan both in the episode. And I love that. I love the attention to detail. I love that it's a great Stan and Haley and Francine and Steve episode. You always see Stan and Haley butting heads, but here they're genuinely working together. They're genuinely bonding, and it's a wonderful display that she very much is Stan's daughter. And we've seen inklings of that as early as the first season, but it's just wild to me when you compare it to like Family Guy and Peter's relationship with Meg. In the beginning, their relationship was relatively fine, and as it's gone on, it's just become almost a mockery of that initial idea, whereas Stan and Haley, that relationship has arguably gotten stronger and weaker, but it's always been there. There's never been a question that Stan loves his daughter, and I think this episode really exemplifies how similar both he and Haley are, and Francine and Steve are. As a whole, it shows them as a wonderful family, and then it just cuts to Klaus being great. Just him watching on TV and commentating, and I love that. There is so much to just love about this episode. It's another great, like, TBS introduction episode if you want people to just see what New American Dad is like. I know people have asked, what's the difference between Fox era and TBS era? And it's very minimal. But if you marathon the show from the early seasons into the TBS era, you start to see those subtle twists, those subtle additions. You know, more swearing because they have to deal with censorship, more out there references. Like in the, I think it's like season 16, they make a Leon the Professional reference, which is very, very, very niche, and they never call attention to it. Now, sure, they'll make other references like the Ninth Circle way back in A Boy Named Michael, but they're still trying to be creative and weird in a way they would probably not have been allowed to be on Fox or have been as positively received as on Fox. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot to love with this episode, and it's a great symbol of what the TBS era is. Number 1, The Long Bomb. I really want to thank a commenter because they actually pointed out to me that The Long Bomb is actually a parody of the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Sudden Death, which, like, it's no blood sport, but it is one of my favorite Van Damme movies, and to know that The Long Bomb is a parody of it makes The Long Bomb like 12 times better. Yeah, this is easily in my top, honestly, I'll say top 5 episodes of the entire series. I would say this is one of the absolute peaks of American Dad, and largely due to my absolute love of the man, the myth, the legend, George Lowe. When you talk about influential people, George Lowe is one of the most influential Adult Swim voice actors, creators, what have you, of all time. So to hear him in American Dad just makes me so happy. I have had the privilege of meeting the man. He is an absolute saint. He is a wonderfully weird and eccentric guy. So being able to hear him here, I can picture him just having a ton of fun, putting his whole heart into this one offbeat character for a very brief moment. And then you also have Maurice LaMarche just absolutely hamming it up in the best possible way. And it's such a fun episode. Dietrich Bader comes back. There's a lot to love. And again, it's another really, really solid Stan and Haley episode, where if it was, say, Peter and Meg in the situation, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't save Meg. But Stan is willing to risk his life for his family, even if he doesn't think that they have a lot in common or something that they can talk about. Something he's grappled with Steve in the past. Not only do you have an engaging internal conflict, you have a gripping external conflict that pulls them and Roger into it. And that is how you build an arguably perfect episode. I can't think of a single flaw to this episode. I can't think of anything this episode does wrong at all. Right from the beginning, you get that cold open, you get the wonderful action sequences, and again, you get dynamite vocal performances that I cannot celebrate enough. There is just, It is just such a perfect episode, and it breaks my heart that more people don't talk about how wonderful The Long Bomb is. And there we have it. That was my top 5 of season 12. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What were your top 5 episodes? Let me know in the comments below. Overall, yeah, between the celebration of legendary voice actors, phenomenal guest cameos, and just really, really great stories, season 12 has a lot for you to love. There's some great episodes, and then there's just some brilliant ones. The Long Bomb was, and forever shall be in my top 5 American Dad episodes of all time. And you need to put some flowers on George Lowe's name. That man is a legend. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode. If you want content early, make sure to join our member or patron groups, $2 a month, and you even get put on this wonderful list. Look at it going by. It's so majestic. You could be a part of this. And as always, stay strong. Stay you. I believe in you. Even if you just woke up this morning, know that you accomplished something, and I am proud. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.